I'm Elisabeth and this is the tiny house that I built. Let me show you around. So this is the steps up and the porch, and this tree was just a dead tree that was lying on the ground when I built the house, and I thought it would make the perfect post for the porch. And these are just gourds, which is a vegetable, a dried vegetable, and then you can carve into them because they've kind of become like wood. So I made the lampshades from vegetables. And the same with this post is also just found, and this piece of metal I found by the bins, so it really was like just a mixture of everything that I found. The front door I made from scratch because I really wanted to have a stable style door, so you can open the top part and keep the bottom closed, or you can open the whole thing. So it's quite a thick thick door. The stained glass window was given to me by a man who gave me the old Mercedes van base, and he said, you know, try and incorporate this in your house. So I put it in the front door. This is the kitchen area. So I wanted to have a really big window to make sure it was light here. And these window arms are actually all the way from England, because you can't get them anywhere in Spain. So I brought those in my suitcase when I went back to England. But everything else is pretty much repurposed or recycled, or the window I found by the bins. This unit with these two drawers was a desk, an old desk. And then I built the rest of it to fit that, really. These doors were from another cabinet. So I just sort of put it all together. The sink was a lady in a flat near the sea had this sink, and she wanted to have a more modern one. So she said, if you can take this out for me and fit my new one, you can have the old one. So, so she gave me this sink, which is great because you can do lots in there because it's so deep. And then here I set the tiles into the wood, so it was kind of like a chopping board within the top, so you didn't have to put extra things out. You're always thinking when you're building something small to try and maximize the storage space. So I wanted to have a cupboard, but I didn't want it to take up all of the surface, so I found this thin kind of cupboard in a flea market. So that's like a little food cupboard in there. And then the mini fridge, that's like an exciting commodity. It's probably the most modern thing in here, but it works perfectly. And obviously in the winter you can keep things underneath the house or outside, that like bigger items, and then keep the smaller things in there. This is my cooker, and this was €20 from another flea market. But again, it's probably the best cooker I've ever owned. So it works with gas, and the gas bottles are stored in the back of the house. And yeah, it's kind of cute and small, so it fits in nicely. And then underneath this was an old bedside cabinet, which I just kind of thought looked similar to the rest of the kitchen. So again, just using the space around it as much as possible. And then hanging things is always a good idea for tiny spaces. And some shelves. And then again, another piece of driftwood that I found, which I thought was a nice shape. Because I really didn't want the house to look too square and too much like a box, so I tried to have curves as much as possible. And this is the olive oil that I make from the olive trees outside the window. So this is the colour, it's amazing. So it's organic, cold pressed olive oil that I make from the farm. This is sort of like the dining area. Again, this curved piece of wood I found by a skip. People were just getting rid of it, and the piece that I cut off from there is actually the shelf up there. So again, used all of it. The table leg is another tree, basically another piece of wood from a tree. And then underneath here is like a little bench seat, and of course opens up for storage. Extra storage up here. These doors I found in a market, and then I just made the cabinet to fit in this very small space. And it's funny, like you think, oh, it's barely worth putting like a cupboard in such a small area, but it actually gives lots of storage in there. These doors, like the bathroom door, and then there's a door over there as well, with this twisty metal in. I got these for €10 each from like a salvage junkyard, and just sanded them, and I put a mirror behind the iron in this one so that there'd be a mirror in the house. So yes, behind here is the bathroom. So you've got the essential toilet paper on the back of the door. And then, so when I first built the house, I had a totally composting toilet. But now that I have it as more of a house for people to have a little breakaway or a retreat, or people come and stay, I found it was harder for people to get to grips with the composting toilet. So I put in a normal toilet pan, but then it doesn't have a flush. So I built a natural soak outside. So when people use the hose from the shower to flush, and then it goes into a natural soak in the ground. Just past the toilet, you've got a full-size shower in here. This is also where the flush for the toilet comes from. And it's got a nice big shower head. And again, the shower rail is just a piece of tree. And the walls are made from aluminium roofing that was left over from the roof. So it's nice and waterproof, but it's also lightweight, because I wasn't sure what to do in here. I didn't know, because tiles were going to be really heavy and wood wouldn't have been very practical. So yeah, I used the aluminium roofing that was left over. I found these tiny Andalusian tiles again in like another second-hand sort of junk shop, and they finished off the top of that nicely. All the oranges are from the land, so there's about 50 orange trees. So yeah, it's amazing to be able to like make fresh orange juice every morning. And the almonds as well are from the nut trees on the land. There's pecan, almond and walnut trees. So yeah, blessed with lots of nature's bounty. I used to have a gas heater in here, but it took up space. So I've now put this kind of wall mounted plaque heater on, which does the job pretty well. Normally when it's sunny, and we're blessed with lots of sun in Spain, the house warms up quite quickly because it's all wood and it's insulated. So on sunny days the light just streams in and it's lovely. You don't really need the heater, but in the winter you definitely need it. This was another of the doors that I salvaged for €10 with the iron. So tried to use the space behind the stairs as like more storage space. So this is actually just an empty cupboard at the moment, but as you can see, there's quite a lot of space in there for clothes and things like that. Again, when I lived in here, I had most of my clothes in there, but now that I rent it out, I just keep it clear for people. And then the same with the main wardrobe under here. Again, I found these doors and they had like a really interesting yellow glass in each section, so I took that out and just put some, these were old blinds for the window, so I just put those in instead because the yellow glass was a bit much, a bit bright. This is the sofa, and it's got loads of storage underneath, and I actually built it so that these doors like open up and they've got legs underneath, so this can become, then this slides across and it becomes like a day bed. So if anyone stays or you need an extra bed, then this actually turns into a bed. But in the meantime, you can store lots of things underneath. Always have a guitar handy and a cup of tea. All the lighting was second-hand lanterns, and the big bubble light was also from a market and was about 12 euros, I think. So this is just some extra storage that I put in really as a bit of an afterthought, but it can act as, if you're sitting on the sofa, you can have like you can use it like this, or I used to have my laptop on there so that I could watch things on there, and then inside I used it as like a laundry basket for dirty washing. I built this mezzanine level. Actually, all the wood, not this wood, but the wood under here is all repurposed pallets. So that was a big job, like prizing the pallet wood off the pallets, but it looks really nice, I think, so it was worth it. And then it was just strengthened with these really strong shelf brackets. But also the mezzanine goes right into the structure of the house, so it really adds a lot of strength to this end of the house, and the bathroom adds the strength to that end, so kind of works both ways. And again, yeah, I used like the curly wrought iron. Again, that was another piece that I think that came from a friend who had it left over from a railing they were making. So yeah, I tried to tie in like the details of that with the curly shelf brackets, and then the doors with the wrought iron as well. And then the stairs are pretty narrow to keep as much space as possible in the main house. But I actually, when I was making these, I laid out the stud wood on the floor and tried to lay down on the floor and imagine if I could actually fit up them. And I can. So it's all good. So yeah, we go up here into the bedroom. This is the mezzanine bedroom, so it's got a nice double bed and a little shelving unit over there. Again, the light was another lamp that I found in the market, and this thing that I use as like a headboard was a €1 scarf, like a shawl. So I used that as like a headboard. Over there in the corner, I can turn the lights on and off in the house from there. So you can turn the main light off, and you can even turn the outside light on and off. Because with it being a small space, once you're up in the bedroom, it's quite annoying when you think, oh no, I've got to go downstairs and turn the lights off. And also it means that if you ever were worried about like something outside, you can turn the light on from the bed, which kind of makes you feel a bit safer. Then I really wanted to put a window on both sides of the mezzanine area so that you could get a through breeze in the summer, and it really does work, like, because it in the height of the Andalusian summer, it does get pretty hot. So if you have both windows open, you get like a nice draft across. The curtains I made from an old Indian sari, because I really like the colours. This little cabinet again was found in a junk shop, and I just had to cut the legs to make it shorter because it was sort of up there before. And the lamp is another gourd, like the lamps outside, but I used it as the base this time, so that's another vegetable, if you can see. And then I just attached a bulb and the wire through the vegetable. The roof is probably my favourite part of the whole build. I really wanted it to feel light and airy and to have light coming in and not to feel like a sort of box at the top. So even though it was really difficult, I made the whole of the roof section on the ground and then had to hire a crane to put it on the top. So this curved bit is metal, and these joints are all metal. And again, I used shelf brackets, twisted shelf brackets all the way along to attach it. And then these windows, so I made the wooden frame all the way down and then bought glass the size and then fitted the glass in myself by using beading, just pinning the beading in on both sides. And then there's 4 windows that open. I think I can show you. So these open up, so there's 2 on each side, and
they have mosquito net.
And they have, yeah, a mosquito net. It's actually based on an old railway carriage. It's called a Mollycroft roof, and the idea is that when it's really hot, the heat rises up from the ground and up out the top, and that's how they built the old railway carriages, to make sure they didn't get too hot. And it really does work. It's amazing. Like if the windows are shut and you come in here in the summer, it's like really hot, and then as soon as you open them up, you can almost feel the air going past you and out. So it really works, and it's lovely because you can lie in bed and watch the stars, or you know, I can see the top of the olive trees from here just blowing in the wind. So it kind of makes you feel really close to nature, which is always good. This width is about 2 meters 25 or 2 meters 30, so you can comfortably get like a queen size bed. And then I wanted to make sure there was some floor so that when you come up the stairs you weren't straight onto the bed. So yeah, I think it works perfectly up here for either 1 or 2 people. The 2 sides of the roof where the Mollycroft isn't, I used bamboo on a roll, and then to finish the edges, this bamboo was collected just from down the road. There's a river and the bamboo just grows wild, so all this was from down by the river, and then I just screwed it on to trap this bamboo in, and again on this side as well. So up here, so in here is the bathroom, which didn't need to be, you know, right the full height. So again, I've got a mini mezzanine level up there, so the wrought iron grid folds down, and then you can use that area for storage. So when I was building the mezzanine area, I just used myself as a measurement, because I built this house to live in. I thought this would be my house forever, or for a long, long time. So I basically just made everything a good height for me. So as I walk underneath here, I just wanted to make sure that I could walk standing up straight. So unless you're like 6'2", it's pretty good. So I made this hook from a piece of bamboo found by the river, and this is what helps me to open the windows up in the roof. I'll just do this, and there we go. This is the stable door from the inside, so you can see that you can bolt the bottom part closed and have the top part open. And this beaded curtain is particularly useful in summer, just to stop like the flies and things coming in, but to get the light and the air in. So this section is like a sort of mini terrace, I suppose. I made it so that it hinges onto the side, so that if this has to travel, it can fold up against the side. But actually I ended up taking it off altogether, just because it was easier when I moved the house. But I built this so that I could fit a yoga mat on it and do yoga whilst looking at the mountains, or just be out here like playing guitar or sitting out here and looking at the stars and the moon at night. So yeah, I love this little area in the trees. So this is just an air vent behind the fridge to make sure that it doesn't overheat. And here is a little table and chairs so you can sit and eat outside. Here's Feather. This is the rainwater collection tank, and then it's got a tap down here so I can fill up the watering can and water plants with it. And actually the mini guttering that I made, at the top of this pipe, the funnel is actually just like a kitchen funnel that I painted black. And here, this is the box I made on the back of the house to house things like the gas for the water heater and the gas for the cooker. And then there's an outside socket here so that if I'm using tools outside, I can plug into there. So in this section is the water heater that heats the hot water for the shower inside and for the sink as well. And in this box is the gas, 2 gas bottles. For this one is just for the hot water and this one is for the cooker. So this table I just built to hide the towing arm from when I moved the house. But actually I see that guests like to sit out here quite a lot. So these also are like tree stump stools, just recycled trees that I've found and made a little seat, and they have cushions. So before I started building the tiny house, I was living in a small flat by the sea, and I was working in a job that I didn't really like, to pay a big rental bill at the end of each month, and then I didn't really have any other money or income. And it just reminded me again that we're only here once and it's like important to live rather than just exist. And it was a point in my life where I'd kind of lost a lot of things, so it was easy for me to think, well, there's nothing really to lose, so I might as well try, because I had no experience at all of building. I've always been quite good with making things, but I'd never built anything before, so it was kind of a crazy idea, but I just knew deep down in my heart that it's what I needed to do. I never even knew that tiny houses were a thing. I just, from being really young as a child, I just had this, I just loved small spaces and like tree houses and like little wooden dens and things like that. So I think I just always had this idea that when I was old, I would build like a wooden house. But I didn't know it was kind of like a big movement until I started building it and finding other people doing things. And when I built it, I didn't own any land or have any land. So I didn't like the idea of building something somewhere and then moving on and having to leave it. So the more movable it was, the better, because it meant I was more free to find the perfect place to be and then to move it there later. Before I even built the tiny house, I'd kind of gone through a process of simplifying everything. And the flat that I was renting and living in was very small. It was like everything in one room. So that had kind of helped me to imagine how it would be living in like 5 meters by 2.5 meters. But it's amazing sort of what you can get into that space. If you're building it and putting everything in it, you can make it kind of work and function for you. It didn't really take that much adjusting the actual space-wise, I think what was different is I was in the middle of nowhere in the mountains, and I've always loved nature and being outside and mountains and trees and wildlife and nature. But when you're suddenly just there in it, and it's like, okay, it's dark now and it's just me here, and there's like a lot of things to get used to. Like, you start hearing different things, like you become aware of different animals' cries and all that kind of thing. I think took a while to get used to, and to feel safe there, and yeah, to kind of live without some of the luxuries that we get used to or think that we have to live with. But it kind of, for me, it felt totally luxurious because I'd built it and it was exactly as I wanted it, and it was my own house, so it felt like a luxury, really. At the start, it ran from solar because the land where I built it didn't have any electricity to it, so it was just linked to some solar panels. And of course, on like cloudy days, they didn't work, and everything turned off. And then sometimes in the middle of the night, I would have to go out and kickstart a generator. And it was things like that that took a while to get used to, because they're just things that you're just not used to doing, like making a fire or starting a generator or kind of basic survival things. But we're just not really brought up to understand these things and to understand how simple they are. At that point, I just had a small gas heater, yeah, that was linked to like a small gas canister. The building process was so much harder than I imagined, in all ways. Just the relentless nature of it and how long everything took. And sometimes you'd work for like 16 hours a day, like quite physical labour. And at the end of the day, you wouldn't really see a big change or a big difference. So it was quite hard to keep motivated by myself, sort of doing such kind of new things to me, and then not really seeing like major results for weeks at a time. I'd probably say it was a year from start to finish. I had a budget of 5,000 euros for like everything. So from having nothing to having a finished house plus everything inside it. And I managed to stick to that. So I was really pleased with that. I was really careful, and I used so many recycled things or found things or things that were really cheap from markets that were secondhand. I've just always thought it's really amazing to be able to take old stuff and turn it into something new or reuse it in some way. And there's so much, we throw away so much as a society, that it's amazing to be able to use other people's rubbish and then turn them into something instead of buying new things all the time. Of course, some things I had to buy new, like the wood for the structure, and I even tried to recycle screws for a long part of the build, and then I was like, this is crazy. I need to buy new ones. But actually the biggest part of the budget was screws and pins. I probably spent 1,000 euros on screws and pins and different joining mechanisms, and I had no idea about things like that. I thought the biggest part of the budget would be like the things inside, and that was tiny compared to the actual build. So yeah, I think if I was ever to do it again, I wouldn't start with like a battered up old chassis. I would probably start with something that was already a structure and then just work from that, because the money I saved from not buying something to start with, probably I spent in time, like months of kind of reworking and trying to get something that wasn't really suitable to be suitable. So I'd definitely start with a structure next time and pay some of the budget on that, and then just to save so much time and work. Because at the start I was thinking of it being movable, a lot of the materials I chose were really lightweight, because I thought that was important. But then when I thought about it afterwards, I wish I'd have used some thicker wood and things like that on the outside, for example, and maybe thicker insulation, because actually it needed to move from like A to B, but it was never going to be like a touring bus. So I think I made some errors in like the materials I used, so I'd probably change those if I did it again. It was just amazing to go from, you know, having nowhere to live really, and then having your own house that you've designed and that everything works for you and things are where you want them, and just to be kind of slightly off-grid and slightly tucked away in the mountains and living a more simple life. Like, I think that's pretty priceless. I lived in it for nearly 3 years where I built it, yeah, which was really in the middle of nowhere in the mountains. And then after 3 years, I found this land here and I fell in love with this place, and I just thought, this is the place. And then, so then I moved it from where it was to here. I knew I didn't want it to stay there forever because it wasn't really practical. But I wasn't sure where or how or what, when or anything really. And then
how did you find it, this place?
I think I'd done like a search online and started having a look around, and I didn't even know this valley existed. And then I just saw a picture of it and I thought, that seems like the right place. And then I just saw it once and then thought, that's it. It's about 2,000 to 3,000 square meters of land. It's all organic. The previous owner never used chemicals here, which is brilliant. And it's got a fruit orchard and an olive orchard, so I can make my own olive oil, and lots of different nut and fruit trees. And it's right in the middle of a mountainous valley in Andalucia, which is beautiful. There's like some kind of rock pools and waterfalls nearby, and there's mountain deer, there's goats, there's chickens around. So yeah, it's pretty much like heaven. I've learnt loads of different lessons, and I think nature teaches us the most wonderful things. And it's been amazing to see how it changes like through the seasons. So things become, you know, in season or in fruit or in flower, and then they look kind of dead the next season, and then it's something else's turn, and then everything is like a cycle. And there's so many things you can make and use, and even like the sap from the almond trees I'm making into like a lip balm, and so you can use everything that nature gives you. I made a design before I started, so I drew out like a plan on paper of how everything could fit that I needed. Like, how could I fit basically a whole house into what would normally be somebody's like living room or lounge. So I had quite a detailed plan of how everything would fit. And then I made a cardboard model of it to see if it would work, like dimension wise. And then from there, I just started building, knowing the dimensions it had to be legal. And then whenever I found things, I thought, what could they be and how could they work in with the design? And then I just sort of incorporated them in like that. And it's actually turned out pretty much exactly as I drew it. So I moved here to the farm, and the tiny farmhouse was just basically a shell. So I had to do up the farmhouse, so make that livable. And then I moved into the farmhouse, and then it took me about a good few months to find someone that would bring the tiny house from where it was to here. So for a while it was still where it was. And then once I'd finished the farm, I got a company to tow it to here. And then I wanted to share it with other people and offer people like a break, or like I've had some artists come for like a retreat and just write poetry or paint or write music. And now I just, it's just available for people to rent through the Eden Whispers Art Farm website, and there's always information on the Facebook page and Instagram as well, so people can have a look at the area and see if they'd like to come and stay in paradise. Most guests usually love it.
Any advice for someone who actually want to build a house?
I'd definitely say go for it. Yeah, there's nothing I regret at all. I think when I built it like 5 or 6 years ago now, it was still then I got quite a lot of opposition and people saying that was a silly idea and don't do that, and I think people were worried about it or they couldn't understand why someone would want to do that. But now I think it's a lot more accepted, and especially in these times where we've had like pandemics and people have been kind of stuck in cities and things, there's been more of a move towards like something more simple in the countryside. And so yeah, I'd always say just follow your heart and follow what feels right for you. I watched lots of YouTube videos on how to build a house on wheels, and at the time I thought, I don't know if this is that helpful, but actually when I started building I had so much knowledge in a way from just watching other people do it that it was really helpful. And yeah, go and talk to people that have already done it and go and look around somewhere and see. I've had some guests that have been to stay and said, we've come to stay because we want to see if we could live in something this small. So they've come for a weekend to experience it. So I'd say that's a good idea too. I didn't really do any of that, but I knew I'd be all right. I guess I'd say I'm sort of a mixture of a farmer and a singer. And I love both. I love being in nature. I love making things from what nature gives us and keeping the land. And then, yeah, singing is my day job, I guess, or night job. Yeah, so that's always been my passion, and I just feel amazingly grateful to be able to share my voice with other people and to touch people. And yeah, and then I run the tiny house as a rental, a holiday rental. So I'd love it if you could come and stay. You can find links to the farm on Instagram and Facebook and on the website. It's called Eden Whispers Art Farm. And yeah, I post quite a lot of information on there all the time, so you'll see lots of images. Thank you for having me, and thanks for watching.
It's warm here in the mountains, it always seems that way. And I've been thinking about you almost every day. Thinking about the good times, thinking about the rain, thinking about how strange it feels alone again. I'm sorry for the way things are around us. I'm sorry things ain't what they used to be. More than anything else, I'm sorry for myself, 'cause you're not here with me.